Welcome back, GRD 130 to part 2 of our Hoppy dog exercise. And we made one logo, kind of look like that. You might have had something similar to that, different. Hey, one thing you could also do if you ever wanted to add color on this, if I zoom in here, there's always the option of putting that in red or pink or something like that. You know, when available, it actually looks more like a tongue when you do that. So if you have the ability to use color, that actually looks better like that. It gives a little flash of color. It looks more like a tongue than when it's just white, but we try to do it monochromatic first just in case we don't. So anyway, that's what we could do there. Let me get back to my other logo. I'll go back to page 2. Now, here's this picture of Parker. Now, if I go into letter here, you'll see there's an image. Now, I'm going to unlock it right now. And the reason I'm going to unlock it because I'm going to click on it and I'm going to increase the opacity because I just want to see what's going on with his leg here. It's kind of hard. He's in shadow here. It's hard to see what's going on with his feet. I don't know if his feet are going there. It's kind of hard, but that'll affect how the logo looks when we trace it. You know, I'm sure his feet are there unless they're kind of underneath him like that, but maybe we'll just kind of end it there. But I just wanted to make it a little darker to do that. And now I'll go back and I'll make it lighter again because it'll be easier to trace when it's lighter. So I'll put it around 50 or so. And then I'll relock it again. So anyway, that's Parker. And what we're going to do is trace Parker. We can even slim him down. He's got kind of a big chest here, so we might slim him down so he doesn't look so heavy. And I'll zoom in a little bit and go around. And we're going to use the pen tool. And I'll start it at his nose and then work my way around and get back. Now, the tricky part here is the tail because it gets drawing a curly tail with the pen tool can be a little hard, but we can simplify it and curl it later. So I'll show you some tricks to do that. So what I'll do is I'll take the pen tool and I'm going to just start on his nose and I'll click. And then I'll go here and I'll click. Now, instead of going over here and then smoothing it out, you can go up here to the top of his head and click and drag. If you click and drag in one movement, it'll kind of round off. And then before you click again, you can kind of lay it down on his head. And that's not bad. And then you could just click. So now I'll just click. Now I'll just click. So we can smooth things out later. So I'll just click. I'll click. You don't have to make a whole bunch of points. Even if it is a straight line, we can always smooth it out with that bendy tool. So just go down here, click, and maybe I'll just make a couple clicks here and we'll try to smooth it out with the bendy tool. I'll just click, click. We'll just make it very angular and try to smooth it out and see if that works better. If you're new to this, that might work okay. And then I'll click, I'll come down, I'll click, and I'll just kind of go over here like this. I'll just leave it flat and I'll click, click, and then I'll go up here, click, and then I'll go down where his foot is. Now his foot's kind of in the grass, so I'll try to go out a little bit. And just go up here. I'll try to smooth out his chest. I'll go up here so we can kind of make his chest a little narrower. And then go up here, and also he has a big thing kind of hanging below his chin. We'll kind of go by that. And then I'll just finish up here. And if you finish up right there, you won't get that weird thing where you have to hit escape. So let me scroll up a little, and I'll just click. And then you shouldn't get anything else. You should be done. Now before we're done, before we hit done, and if you do hit done, let's say, oh, I'm done, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to fix this. Then you can always just go to this, you can always just go to this edit shape button, edit object, or you could double click on it, but it may be hard to do it without a fill right now. But edit shape, it'll take you back into that anchor point editing mode. And what I'm going to do is just take this bend tool and just grab it and just kind of bend some shapes. I'll bend this out just a little, and I'll bend out his chest a little bit, and I'll bend his leg in, and I'll bend this part out a little so it kind of looks like a paw. Maybe I'll bend this in a little, and I'll bend this out so it's kind of maybe his foot. Maybe I'll even bend this up a little. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it straight. And bend that down a little. Just anywhere where you could round it off. His back, I'll round it off a little. That looks okay there. Now the tail's going to be a little tricky, so I'm going to zoom into that. So I'm going to go down here and do Command plus or Control plus, depending what operating system you're working on. And I'm going to try to just go with the bendy tool and just kind of round off some of that. I'll round that off. And I'll round this off. And I'll round that. And I'll round this one. And I'll even round this one in. And maybe I'll bend this in a little and bend this out a little. And this might need something, so I'll just do a little bit. Then you can go back to your arrow, and then if you have to tweak this stuff a little bit, you have handles here, and then you could kind of have a little more control over what's going on. You could drag them out and in, you could kind of round it a little bit more. This one, if it's too much, you could shorten these handles, bring these in a little bit. You bring his tail like up a little bit, shorten it. Just do your best to kind of round it a little bit. I don't care if it's pointy at the end, even though the tail's not really pointy. I'll kind of do that. Give it a little more room in there. Bring this up. Whatever you have to do. Kind of move this a little bit up. That's not too bad. Bring this down. Anything else you want to mess around with a little bit. That's good. In here, I wasn't sure what to do here. I'm just going to leave that alone. And I'll zoom out. And I think I'm done. So I'll hit done. And now it's called vector. I'll just call that dog. And I'll give it a fill, because right now it just has a stroke. So I'll hit the minus sign for the stroke. I'll hit the plus sign for the fill. Now it's gray right now. I'll change it to black. And that's not too bad. And I think it's better than the one I did before. That looks better. And what I'll do now, I'll zoom out and I'll hide his image. So I'll go on the eyeball here, I'll turn that off. And now I have this nice image to work with. I'm going to go to my scale tool and make it nice and small. And I'll go back to Happy. You might say, why are you going back here? Well, I'm going to copy Hoppy Dog and Brewing Company so you don't have to type it again. Copy that. Command C, Control C, and then go back here and paste and bring it over here. Now I'm not going to use the same font, although it doesn't look bad like that. I might want to try something different. So I'm going to look in here, maybe look for a different one. I don't want anything too much on an angle. I don't want anything that's too decorative or anything like that. I mean, you could just look at them. You could say, oh, sriracha, how would that look? Well, I don't know. Try it out. Go here. So let me try it again. SR. SR. See, I didn't know how to spell sriracha. All right, there's sriracha. Now, how does that look with it? That's kind of not bad. I could go a little smaller here. It's 64. Let me try it at like 48. And that goes kind of nicely because the tail's the same thickness of that. Now, I don't know if I like it on an angle like that, but it's not bad. That's not a bad logo like that. Maybe the dog should be a lot smaller. Now, if you use your arrow to scale them, you could do all this kind of stuff, which you don't want to do. So when you're scaling, you're probably better off using the scale tool. Otherwise, if you use the move tool, you should hold your shift key. Then you could kind of make it smaller on your own. And that way you could, you could do something where he sits here, sits right on the type or something like that. You could kind of line it up like that. Whatever you want to do. You could kind of center him, but he's kind of sitting on the type. And you could try different fonts. Actually, I'm clicking on the type right there. But, there's tons you could look at. So I just, look at that one. Caveat brush. That's kind of neat. Caveat. So CAV. Let me try that. Maybe something straighter. That's why I'm looking at that. So CAV. Caveat brush. And it should have a nice playful look. And that has kind of a neat look to it, I think. I might want to go a little bit bigger. You could double click here and I'll just put in like 54. But that has a nice kind of playful look with Hoppy Dog, and it kind of creates a nook here for the dog to kind of sit in there a little bit. I don't know if I want it touching or not. You can make it a different color. It doesn't have to all be black, but I like to work in black first just to make sure that you're seeing the contrast and all that correctly before you start adding color. And then this one, maybe I'll go and make this regular. And maybe I'll bring in and then I'll move this over a little bit, and that's not a bad look. I don't think that's a bad look at all. I might even go medium. Doesn't look bad. And bring this in maybe to about 30%. That doesn't look bad. I mean, this is something you could put a line above and below it, but why not keep it nice and clean? That doesn't look too bad for a Hoppy dog. I mean, there's lots of things you could do. Not only can you look at handwriting, but there's also display fonts that have kind of neat fonts, but you got to be careful because you don't want to find anything that's too distracting that competes with the dog itself. So now that you have the silhouette of the dog, you wouldn't put a Western font next to the dog. You might put something, you know, real plain or something like that. I mean, there's all kinds of nice little fonts here. Actually, Voodoo. Let me try that a second. I just saw that, but it's kind of a nice looking font for some reason. So you could take this and just copy it. So if you like one, you just copy it. So I'm holding down my Alt key or my Option key, and then I'll try this in Voodoo. That was Phu. I think if they have it. Let me make sure I spelled it right. Phu. Now maybe they don't have this one. Phu. Voodoo. And they don't, actually. They don't have that. And it's weird because I haven't seen that before, but there's all kinds of neat fonts. April Fat Face, Lobster looks good, you know, is a nice scripty font. Righteous is kind of a nice kind of plain font. This is Lolita 1. This is a bolder font. And there's the round font. That looks like the one we did with Burger King. Any of these are kind of nice. Let me try Lolita 1. Lolita 1. And now that's a lot bolder, so I'd have to make it smaller. But it's cleaner. And it has a nice little nook there for the dog to sit. And it doesn't mean you have to keep it black, even though Parker's black. You could do something else, you know. You could have a gold color, because our other dog's kind of gold, so you go in the, like the yellow or orange, kind of bring in something like that. If you had kind of a golden dog or something like that, could do something like that, or even just a brown dog or whatever. If you're going to get into a color, maybe the type will be a color. Maybe you'd keep this thing black, and maybe this thing would be in a color. You change the color of this. I don't know. Red, brown. I don't know if you're talking beer or something. Maybe get into kind of like a brown color like that. That might look okay. I think actually that other one, remember that sample? I think I kind of used like kind of a beerish color with that. Maybe you could do something there. Let me try that again. You know, something like that, and then put a stroke on it. Like a little thicker stroke here. 2-point stroke. That's kind of a neat look. And I'll make it, maybe I'll use my scale tool and maybe just scale it. Let me zoom in here. That's not a bad look either. And it kind of makes the dog stand out. I can make the dog a little smaller. The dog's actually behind the type. What happened here? Oh, a bunch of this stuff is not on my letter. Let me just get all these things. I'm not sure how they got off the frame. They're not on here. Let me just bring them in here. They should all be on there. And then my dog should be in front of Hoppy Dog. So you could drag it up in here. So again, I'm not sure why all the things were above the frame. But that way I could have the little curl of the dog in front of that. So that's not a bad logo. That's not a bad logo. I could highlight the whole thing and use the scale tool, and it scales it all together. And, you know, I have 2 examples there. So there are 2 examples, nice things with a silhouette of a dog. And this one was using a face of a dog. Actually, I like the silhouette better, but this is kind of a nice look as well. Kind of a different kind of look, and you could certainly play around with lots of different typefaces. And I like that look too. Compared to what I did last year, this is kind of neat. I like that. And I think that's it. We could stop from there. So to turn it in, once you did this, you know, you messed around a little bit. And you could make copies of stuff and try, you know, same thing here. You could copy this, hold down your Alt key, and copy it, and make a different, you know, version and stuff. So don't worry about what's going on over here. Probably the best thing to do, actually, if you're going to do that, I'd say group it. Do Command G or Control G, group it, and then copy it. And then to get inside it, you could just double click, or you can open up the group here. There's a little arrow, you can open up the group and go in there and try a different typeface or something. Double click in here, try a different typeface for this if you want to try something else. Something, you know, lighter and cleaner or something like that, you could try that as well. But anyway, once you're done, you can go here to the share button, copy link, go back to coursework, click on the Hoppy Dog logo, go down to add comment, insert a link, paste your shared link from Figma, and make it open in a new window, and hit save, and hit save again, and you're done. So that's it. That's your Hoppy Dog. So give you a chance to have a little fun kind of designing a little bit with some type and with some shapes. And if you run into problems, you know, let me know. Sometimes I'll record a video for students if they're struggling with something, but just kind of mess around a little bit and have some fun with it. So anyway, that's the Hoppy Dog logo. We have this one with the face, and we have some with a silhouette of a dog drawn with the pen tool.